Yesterday we read from Leviticus 19:11. Let's go to Leviticus chapter 19 verse 11. Leviticus 19:11. It says, "You shall not steal, nor deal falsely, nor lie one to another." You shall not steal, nor deal falsely, nor lie one to another. This is very, very important because, and that's why we're coming back to this, because this will most likely, not the stealing part. Most of us, we're never in a situation where, that we have to steal. But the lying part is the part that is so important. It's very, very necessary, because we can see from Revelation chapter 21 verse 8, we can see that no liars will be allowed into the kingdom. So that's why this is so important. And the fact that we have been taught in the world that there are some lies that are okay and some lies that are bad. No, this is bad. You can't lie. This is not good. It's, there are some lies that are big, like huge lies. And then there are some lies that are okay. Oh, just, white lies. But that is a lie from Satan. That is a lie from Satan. All lies are the same. There is something that many of you may be familiar with. And it certainly, I'm sure it happened to me when I was younger, where sometimes somebody will visit or somebody will come. During that time, we don't have cell phone like we have now. The way, almost everyone has a cell phone. So typically people will visit your house without telling you. And sometimes somebody that your family owes money, or your mother or your dad owes money, will just show up without calling, because they don't have a cell phone to call. So if they come to the door and they are knocking, your mother will be like, or your dad will be like, tell them that I'm not home. And then they will go inside the room, and then you're supposed to come and tell them that your mom or your dad is not home. These are the kind of lies that they call white lies. But it's the same. It's all the same. All lies are the same. And so when you grew up in that situation where your family members are telling you to do stuff like this, psychologically you think it's okay. It's okay. You are most likely to grow up doing the same thing to your children, just having them, just lie, just to, especially in little things, because this is how Satan is going to test you. Satan is going to test you with little things. So, and after some time, it becomes okay in your head that it's okay to tell that kind of, they call it white lies. So I also had a situation where somebody, that told me, it's kind of like a family friend. One time I was in their office and they were getting phone calls, and so I was in their office and I was answering their call for them in their office. And then they told me to tell this particular person that they're not there, that they're not there. Something like that. They would tell me to do stuff like that, but they're there. So, and I would be very uncomfortable. This was when I was a Christian. I would be very, that's very uncomfortable for me to tell somebody on the phone that you're not there when you are there. So to me, I was very uncomfortable doing that. So it's as you saw, or as you can see in Revelation chapter 21, Revelation 21 verse 8. Revelation 21 verse 8 says, or starting from verse 7, it says, "He who overcomes shall inherit all things, and I will be his Elohim, and he shall be my son." Verse 8, "But the cowardly, unbelieving, abominable, murderers, sexually immoral, sorcerers, idolaters, and all liars." See, it's interesting that it says all liars. I don't know why it says that, but I think I know why it says that. It's like, new the way we are thinking right now in the world, by thinking that some lies are okay and some lies are not okay. This is New King James. It says all liars shall have their part in the lake of fire, which burns with fire, in the lake which burns with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. So all liars, not some liars, not serious liars, or no, all liars. So this is very, very important. Yah hates lies. And this is the most common thing that the evil one is going to use in his war against us. This is the most common thing that he is going to use. Meaning that he is going to be using his children. He will be using his children to put us in a situation where we will have to lie. His goal is to get you to disobey Yah, to break the laws and the commandment. That is Satan's goal, to get you to break the laws and the commandment. So if we go back to Leviticus chapter 19, Leviticus chapter 19, verse 11, "You shall not steal, nor deal falsely, nor lie one to another." So that stealing there, it's very difficult for Satan to get you with that. Very, very difficult for Satan to get you with stealing. You are most likely not going to fall for that. Most of the time he will not be able to get you with stealing. But what he will get you is with lying. And he is going to be creating circumstances and situations where you will find yourself maybe at your job, maybe in situations where he will put you in a situation where somebody will seek out information from you that you don't really want to give out. And what people do most of the time is that they will lie. But we can't do that. If you are going to be lying, then just forget keeping the Sabbath. Forget whatever you're doing, because it's going to be a waste of time. It's going to be whatever else you're going to be doing. Don't even bother claiming that you're a Hebrew. Just forget it. If you're going to make lying practice, if you're going to be lying, then every other thing you're doing is nothing but an absolute waste of time, complete waste of time. That's why this is very important. So we're going to look at this, and then we will then look at some other, because we're not supposed to be doing this anymore. So we're going to look at this, those that found themselves in a situation like that. Like as I said, that Satan will use his children to push you into a situation where you are going to find yourself in a situation of that you may have to lie. He's going to push you into a corner like that, using his children. So, but it's also a test. It's also going to be a test from our Heavenly Father to test you, to see what you will do. It's going to be a test to test you. So, and from there, we will also look at the way we are supposed to be living now. We're not supposed to be living the way we used to live in the past. I used to willingly and willfully lie anyhow, almost on a daily basis. I'll just lie and just like, I used to do it very commonly. But we're not supposed to do that anymore. I'm not supposed to do that anymore. Now I'm supposed to live a different kind of lifestyle, a new lifestyle. So this is very important. Extremely important. It's one of the number one thing when it comes to our salvation, because we can clearly see that Yah will not welcome into his kingdom anybody that lies. He says all kinds of liars, all liars. So let's look at Genesis chapter 12. Genesis chapter 12. And you will see how Abraham was pushed into a situation like what I'm talking about here, or like what I talked about. You see how Abraham was pushed into a situation where he will have to lie. He would have to lie to people. And you see how he handled it. This is what Satan does. Before we even go to Genesis chapter 12, let's go to Genesis chapter 4 verse 7. Genesis chapter 4 verse 7. So in Genesis chapter 4 verse 7, you will see that that Abraham, that Cain got angry at his brother, and he basically became angry at his brother, and he killed his brother. Cain killed Abel, and after that Yah began to talk to him, and Yah told him, during that conversation, let me just read it real quick. This is Genesis chapter 4 from verse 1. Now Adam knew Eve, his wife, and she conceived and bore Cain, and said, I have acquired a man from Yah. Then she bore again, this time his brother Abel. Now Abel was a keeper of sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. And in the process of time, it came to pass that Cain brought an offering of the fruit of the ground to Yah. Abel also brought of the firstborn of his flock and of their fat. And Yah respected Abel and his offering, but he did not basically accept Cain's and his offering. And Cain was very angry, and his countenance fell. Verse 6. So Yah said to Cain, why are you angry? And was your verse 6. So Yah said to Cain, why are you angry? Why has your countenance fallen? If you do well, verse 7, Genesis chapter 4 verse 7, if you do well, will you not be accepted? And if you do not do well, sin lies at your door, and its desire is for you, but you shall rule over it. So now Cain talked with Abel his brother. It came to pass when they were in the field that Cain rose up against his brother and killed him. So what Yah was telling Cain here is that was that he would, the sin meaning lawlessness, the opportunity to sin, the desire to sin, and the opportunity to sin and things like that will always knock on his door. It will always knock on his door. But it's Cain's responsibility to rule over sin. So Satan will always tempt you. Satan will always tempt me. The thing is that Satan is going to be doing this in different angle. He's going to be using different different styles and different tricks to cause us to sin. And one of the most common things he's going to be using is lying, putting us in a situation where we will be in such a difficult situation that you will look at that situation, the only way out may be that you have to lie, but then if you are paying attention and if you are wise, if you are relying on the word of Yah, and if you are, then you will get wisdom and be able to navigate situations like that. When they do push you into a situation like that you have to lie, you will be able to navigate and be able to escape and not lie, because Satan is not going to be doing this to you physically. He's not going to be doing this to you physically, but he is going to be using his children to do this to you. So Genesis chapter 12. Genesis chapter 12 from verse 10. So Genesis 12 from verse 10, it says this. Genesis chapter 12 from verse 10. Now there was famine in the land, and Abram went down to Egypt to dwell there, for the famine was severe in the land. Verse 11. And it came to pass, when he was close to entering Egypt, that he said to Sarah his wife, Indeed, I know that you are a beautiful countenance. You are a beautiful woman of countenance. Verse 12. Therefore it will happen, when the Egyptians seize you, that they will say, This is his wife, and they will kill me, but they will let you live. Please say you are my sister, that it may be well with me for your sake, and that I may live because of you. Verse 14. So it was when Abram came into Egypt, that the Egyptians saw the woman, that she was very beautiful. The princes of Pharaoh also saw her and commanded her to Pharaoh, and the woman was taken to Pharaoh's house. He treated Abram well for her sake. He had sheep, oxen, male donkeys, male and female servant, female donkeys and camels. Verse 17. But Yah plagued Pharaoh. Verse 17. But Yah plagued Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarah, Abram's wife. Verse 18. And Pharaoh called Abram and said, What is this you have done to me? Why did you not tell me that she was your wife? Why did you say she is my sister? I might have taken her as my wife. Now therefore, here is your wife. Take her and go your way. Verse 20. So Pharaoh commanded his men concerning him, and they sent him away with his wife and all that he had. So here you have a situation where Abraham comes into Egypt. He comes into Egypt, and before he even came in, he realized what's going to happen. See, he was paying attention. He was paying attention. He was a wise man. He was paying attention, and he was able to know what was going to happen. And then he told Sarah in advance. Now, did Abraham lie? Was this a lie? Not really. It's not a lie, because Sarah was not Abraham's. They did not come from the same mother, but they came from the same father. Because unlike now, that people have chosen to ignore the word of Yah, back then, people do marry more than one wife, and they all live together as brothers and sisters in a family. People was not as jealous as people are today. The women of back then, our ancestors, their women was not as jealous as the women of this day. And when you do come into a family where a man marries more than one wife, typically all the children from those different mothers, they consider themselves to be all brothers and sisters. They don't think like, oh, that's your mom over there, this is my mom, no, they did not think like that. This is how the 12 tribes, the people of Yah, our ancestors, the 12 tribes came from 4 different women. 4 different women and 1 man. 1 man, 4 different women. But they were all, what does Yah call them all? The children of Israel. They were all the same. So, a man, just like you see with Jacob and Leah and all this, just like that, you see that you have Abraham, his father, has more than 1 wife. Lot, that you read about, Lot, that was living in Sodom and Gomorrah, his father was Abraham's brother. Lot was not Abraham's brother directly, but you can call Lot his brother. If you call Lot his brother, you are right if you do that. So Lot was Abraham's brother, but not directly, because he was Lot's father. Lot's father and Abraham is the same brother. And eventually his father died. Lot's father died, and Abraham, when Abraham was leaving their land, when Yah told him to leave his family and get away from them, when he was leaving, Lot followed Abraham. So his father had multiple wives. So Sarah came from one of the women that Abraham's father married. So technically, Sarah was his wife or was his sister, but not from the same mother, but from the same father. They came from the same father, but not from the same mother. So that was the reason why. So what Abraham did was that he used that opportunity. So he's not really lying. If you're looking at it from his father's point, from his father's line, yes, Sarah was, if Abraham's father calls for all his children to come, Abraham will come, Lot's father will come, Sarah will also come as the child of Abraham's father. So, if we start going back and back and back, all the way back to Adam, you will see that, like, they hid that information from the Bible. Many people have the question, if God created Adam and then created Eve, and then, like we read in Genesis chapter 4, then Eve gave birth to Cain, and then gave birth to Abel. Where does Cain get his wife? That information was taken. It's not. You don't find it in Genesis. They took that information out, but you find it in the book of Jubilee, where you find it in Jubilee, where the book of Genesis come from. So Cain married his sister. So that is how it was in the beginning. But the more they had children, and they had children, and then more children and more children. Yah at that point stopped it. Because right now there's no more, you can't say that you don't, there's no excuse to do that anymore. So now it's a sin for a man to marry his sister. According to the law, it's against the law. In the book of Leviticus, if you go back in Leviticus, you see that it's against the law for a man to marry his blood sister. That's an abomination. If you do that, you will not be saved. That is an abomination, worthy of death. You can't do that. You can't marry your sister, your mother's sister. Even a man cannot even marry. A man cannot marry two sisters together. You can't do that anymore. You can't marry while one of them is alive. If you marry a woman while she's still alive, you cannot marry her sister. But you see the Gentiles do all of these things that I'm talking about. The Gentiles are doing all of these things today. They do all of these things today. So you will see two sisters married to one man. You see all of this today. So these are things that that if you start going back, then you see that these things was basically all the way back to the beginning. It was all kind of, allowed it to happen because there was less people at that time. But now we have no reason. We have absolutely no reason to do that today. And that's why he now has a law that is against this thing. So Abraham was using the opportunity. He used the opportunity. He used that opportunity to handle that situation, because he could have just said to them, if he had said that this is his sister, they will kill him, because the fastest way to have his wife will be to kill him. Because they know that while he's alive, they cannot have his sister. So if they kill him, if they can't have his wife, if they kill him, then Sarah will be vulnerable and would, mourn for her husband for some time. And then after that, she will basically just, they would, so it's easier to just kill him. And Abraham knew that. Abraham knew that. That's why he told him that, so that in that way they can at least not kill him, and at least, because if he's dead, then even if they take his wife, like if they take his wife and he's dead, he can't do anything. He will not be able to rescue her. He will not be able to do anything in terms of rescuing her or protecting her. A dead man cannot do anything. So it's better to at least be in a situation where even if they take her from you, you are still alive. And that will allow you to be able to do something. Because if they think that Sarah was his sister, and they go ahead and take his sister anyways, which they did, then he's still alive. And that will allow him to be able to rescue her and be able to do something about it. But if she put himself in a situation where they will kill him, then they will take her for good. And when we talk about this thing, right now, these things may be very difficult to, maybe kind of not easy to understand. But if you imagine, just imagine right now, pretend as if you don't live where you live. Imagine that you're in the wilderness, in the jungle, where it's the middle of nowhere, and you're traveling, and then eventually you meet some people. You meet some people. There are many of them, and there's few of you. You see, they can do whatever they want to you. Nobody will rescue you unless if Yah is with you. If Yah is with you, then Yah will protect you. So in a situation like that, you have to use wisdom. What do? you know. So, but if you think about this thing from a Western Gentile perspective, you may not understand why Abraham did what he did. But if you think of it from being that he is in a place, in a foreign land, where people did not know Yah, then you will see why he had to use wisdom to be able to handle the situation. So Abraham did not lie, but rather what he did was that he used the situation. He basically thought of something and tried to say something that, you know, that will answer the question, but at the same time, it's not really what they will want to hear. Because as soon as they come up to him, the first thing they will ask is, oh, this woman is beautiful. Is it? They will say it while they are laughing. They will say it while they are laughing and they are smiling, but they have their eyes on her. They want her because she's beautiful. So as they approach him, they will be laughing and they're like, wow, is this your sister or is this your wife? She's beautiful. If he had said, it's my wife, they will be okay. And then they will plan a way to kill him. If he says, she's my sister, they'll be like, okay, she's available, okay. They will most likely not kill him, you know, because there's really no reason to do that. They know that he is not going to have his sister, you know. He's not going to have his sister, and if he is his immediate sister, they know that the highest thing he will do is to be angry if they take her by force. But, you know, he's not going to, you know. So, anyway, but you see him using situation like that. Most people will just lie. Most people will just either say, oh, she's my wife, or they will just say something else. You see similar thing. Let's go to Genesis chapter 20. Genesis chapter 20. The same thing happens again, this time with a different, to someone else. Genesis chapter 20. Genesis chapter 20 from verse 1. Genesis chapter 20 from verse 1. It says, and Abraham journeyed from there to south, and dwelt between Kadesh and Shur, and stayed in Gerar. Verse 2. Now Abraham said to Sarah his wife, she is my sister. And Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent and took her. But Elohim came to Abimelech in a dream by night, and said to him, indeed, you are a dead man. Indeed, you are a dead man, because of the woman whom you have taken, for she is a man's wife. Verse 4. This is Genesis chapter 20. Genesis chapter 20, verse 4. But Abimelech had not come near to her, and he said, yeah, will you slay a righteous nation also? Did he not say to me, she is my sister, and she herself said, he is my brother. In the integrity of my heart and innocence of my hand, I have done this. Verse 6. And Elohim said to him in a dream, yes, I know that you did this in the integrity of your heart, for I also withheld you from sinning against me. Therefore, I did not let you touch her. Now, therefore, restore the man's wife, for he is a prophet. For he is a prophet, and he will pray for you, and you shall live. But if you do not restore her, know that you shall surely die, you and all your and all who are yours. Verse 8. So Abimelech rose early in the morning, called all his servants, and told all these things in their hearing. And the men were very much afraid. Verse 9. And Abimelech called Abraham and said to him, What have you done to us? How have I offended you, that you have brought on me and on my kingdom a great sin? You have done deeds to me that ought not to be done. Then Abimelech said to Abraham, Then Abimelech, verse 10, then Abimelech said to Abraham, What did you have in view, that you have done this thing? And Abraham said, Because I thought, surely the fear of Elohim is not in this place, and they will kill me on account of my wife. But indeed, she is truly my sister. She is the daughter of my father, but not the daughter of my mother. And she became my wife. And it came to pass, when Elohim caused me to wander from my father's house, that I said to her, This is your kindness that you should do for me. In every place whereas we go, say of me, He is my brother. Then Abimelech took sheep, oxen, male and female servants, and gave them to Abraham. And he restored Sarah his wife to him. And Abimelech said, See, my land is before you. Dwell where it pleases you. Then to Sarah he said, Behold, I have given your brother 1,000 pieces of silver. Indeed, this vindicates you before all who are with you, before everybody. Thus she was rebuked. Verse 17. So Abraham prayed to Elohim, and Elohim healed Abimelech, his wife, and his female servant. Then they bore children. For Yah had closed up all the wombs of the house of Abimelech because of Sarah, Abraham's wife. Okay. So, this story is a little bit more in detail. It gives us a little bit more details of why Abraham was doing what he was doing. Like as I said before, if you think of this, when you think of where you live right now, the area where you live right now, this may seem like, why will Abraham be telling them this? That this doesn't make any sense. But if you imagine that you are in an island or inside a jungle, and you come across some barbarians or something, people, with weapons. There are few of you, very few of you in number, and there are many of them. You see, those barbarians can kill you and nothing will happen. It's such a, you have to use wisdom, and Yah has to be with you in order for you to survive in a place like that. It's not, you can't just pick up a phone and call the police to come and rescue you. You can't call the police to come and help you. It's a very different environment. That was the environment that Abraham was living in, or was coming across. So what you saw here, Sister Rose, could you mute yourself? So what you saw here is that you have a situation where Abraham, then comes to this new place and then told this king that it's kind of me. Let's say I have a wife and I'm traveling, or you have a wife and you're traveling and you come into a place. Even if your wife is not beautiful, it doesn't really matter. For most people, they want to have your wife. They want to have your wife, they want to have your sister, they want to have your daughter. most men are like that. Even till today, even where you are, it doesn't matter. This is what people do. Some people will call it human nature. This is what we do. So this is what Abraham had to deal with. Maybe today somebody will come up to your sister and try to take her by force. Maybe you can call 911, or maybe you can do something, or call the police, or do whatever, maybe. But back then you can't do that. So we see what he decided. He says that in verse 12, Genesis chapter 20, first of all, Yah, through a dream, tells Abimelech to restore this man's wife. And you can see how terrified Abimelech was. He was very afraid, because he didn't know. If he knew that Sarah was his wife, he wouldn't have done this. And this is true repentance. When we talk about repentance, this is true repentance. Because you saw that very early in the morning when he woke up, he called everyone. He called the people in his household, and he told them what happened. And they were scared. They were very much afraid. And then he gave Abraham his wife. Not only did he give Abraham his wife, but he gave Abraham gifts. Genesis chapter 20, verse 14. Genesis 20:14. Then Abimelech took sheep, oxen, male and female servant, and gave them to Abraham. And he restored Sarah, his wife, to him. And verse 15. And Abimelech said, "See, my land is before you. Dwell where it pleases you." So not only did he give Abraham all these gifts, he said, all this land, choose wherever you want to live and live. So this is true repentance, meaning that he gave Sarah back, because that's what people do. They took her. They will take her by force, whether she likes it or not. They take her. So he gave her back, and he then took extra step. So if he does then go back and take Sarah again, then that will be sudden destruction. That means that he never repented. But this is what happened, while he did this. According to verse 17, it says that, so Abraham prayed to Elohim, and Elohim healed Abimelech, his wife, and his female servant. Then they bore children, for Yah had closed up all the wombs of the house of Abimelech because of Sarah, Abraham's wife. So Yah made his wife, Abimelech's wife, and all the women who are in his household, Yah made them that they cannot have children again. No more kids. And Yah made he became sick. When he did this, he became sick, and Yah closed up all their wombs that they can't have children. So when Abraham prayed to Yah, Yah then opened up their wombs that they can have children again, because he already has a wife. He has a wife already. The problem is that he took somebody's wife. He took someone's wife. It's not that he took Sarah was not the problem. That he took a second wife was not the problem. It's just that this woman's husband is alive, who is Abraham. So like Sarah said, like Abraham said in verse 12, Genesis chapter 20, verse 12, Abraham says, from verse 11, he said, Abraham said, because I thought surely the fear of Elohim is not in this place, and they will kill me on account of my wife. Verse 12, but indeed, she is truly my sister. She is the daughter of my father, but not the daughter of my mother. And she became my wife. And it came to pass, when Elohim caused me to wander from my father's house, that I said to her, this is your kindness that you should do for me. In every place wherever we go, say of me, he is my brother. Because it was Yah that told Abraham to leave his family, because his father was a pagan worshiper, an idol worshiper. So Yah told him to leave his family, to get away from them. He left. Sarah followed him, and Lot, his brother's son, also followed him to leave their family, because their family refused. Abraham tried to get his father to worship Yah, but his father refused to worship Yah. His father continued to be an idol worshiper. So at some point, Yah told him to get away from them, to leave. So, but again, we're talking about lying here. Lying. So Abraham did not really lie. He did not lie to these two nations, or these two kingdoms that he came across. You see him using wisdom to be able to get himself out of this situation. So these are just the examples that we can see in the scriptures. Let's go to Acts, the book of Acts. Acts chapter, I think it's chapter 4 or chapter 5. In the beginning of Acts chapter 5. Acts chapter 5. Acts of Apostles chapter 5. Acts of Apostles chapter 5, it says, but a certain man named Ananias, with Sapphira his wife, sold a possession, and he kept back part of the proceeds. His wife also being aware of it, and brought a certain part and laid it at the apostles' feet. Verse 3, but Peter said to Ananias, why has Satan filled your heart to lie to the Holy Spirit and keep back part of the prize of the land for yourself? Verse 4, while it remained, was it not your own? And after it was sold, was it not in your own control? Why have you conceived this thing in your heart? You have not lied to men, but to Elohim. Verse 5, then Ananias, hearing these words, fell down and breathed his last. So great fear came upon all those who had these things. Verse 6, and the young men arose and wrapped him up, carried him out, and buried him. Now it was about 3 hours later when his wife came in, not knowing what had happened. And Peter answered her, tell me whether you sold the land for so much. She said, yes, for so much. Then Peter said to her, how is it that you have agreed together to test the spirit of Yah, or spirit of Yeshua? Look, the feet of those who have buried your husband are at the door, and they will carry you out. Verse 10, then immediately she fell down at his feet and breathed her last. And the young men came in and found her dead, and carried her out, buried her by her husband. Verse 11, so great fear came upon all the church upon all the congregation and upon all who had these things. So you see a husband and wife that sold their land and they brought in the money. This wasn't by force. This is something that they had agreed to. This is something that Yah doesn't force people to sell their property and give his money to him. So this is something that they had agreed to. And you see them lying. They lied. It was unnecessary, really, for them to... It was unnecessary, but they lied to the apostles. And you see the apostles saying that you didn't really lie to us. You lied to the Holy Spirit. Meaning they lied to Yah. And you see how they died immediately. There was not even a chance for them to explain anything. They fell down and they died. So, and all the people that had this, they feared. People was terrified upon hearing this thing. You know, that's the reason why Yah do things sometimes, so that the people will hear it and fear. Those that will hear of these things will hear it and they will be afraid of what happened. So, these scriptures is just for you to see that Yah does not tolerate this. Yah does not tolerate lying. We cannot be lying. We can't. And I have found myself in situations, and I still do. I found myself in situations where something will happen, and typically it will catch me off guard. It will catch me, like I won't even be thinking about it. Somebody will just ask me a question. This may be something that I don't want to answer. They will ask me exactly that. And I'm going to try to give you some examples and then some tricks on how to avoid this. You've seen the major tricks from the Bible. You saw what Abraham was doing. Now, your own circumstances might be different. You may not be in the same situation that he is in. But I'll give you some tricks on what I do. And this thing became an issue for me because I would like to make it into the kingdom. So I'm very, very worried about Revelation chapter 28, chapter 21, verse 8. I'm very worried. So I just like, you see, if you don't care about the Bible, then this is not an issue. This is not a problem. This is not going to be a problem. If you don't care about the Bible, if you don't care about your internal life, if you don't care about your the future, your internal life, the kingdom, then this is just a waste of time. Then you don't need, it's not a big deal. Which was the situation that we used to be in. You were not worried about lying in the past. You will easily lie in the past. But now it becomes an issue for you. Just like me, the same thing. Before, this was not an issue. I lie all the time, but at some point now, because I'm worried about the kingdom, I'm trying to be careful. So I try to pay attention. Even when I'm dealing with people, I try to pay attention. I try to think of questions that those things that I don't want to answer. I try to think of certain things that I want to keep away from people. And I try to think of how to handle that situation when people do ask me about that. I try to think of the answer to give. So that in that way I will not lie. Because once you begin to lie, it affects your relationship with Yah. Because that is sin. You are sinning. When you lie, you're breaking the law. Yah cannot be with you. If you begin to lie, you are no different than a Christian. You are no different than a Christian. You are no different than an unbeliever. So that's why this is so important. So, for me personally, this was an issue for me. I have been in situations where people will ask me a question. I'm trying to remember one incident where they will ask me something. I would tell them. There was one situation. I think somebody asked me about a paper. I would ask me about something. Do I have that thing? This is a while ago. That's why I can't even remember. I can't remember the details very well because it's been a while, a long time ago. But I still remember that incident. It's still in my mind because of the way it happened and because I really don't want to lie. So I still remember the kind of like that incident. But it was the situation where that might be at the DMV. I think it was at the DMV, but it has to do with insurance. It has to do with insurance. And that person asked me, do you have, I think she asked, do you have this? I said, yes. But, and then it just dawned on me. What did you just do? What did you just say? And I started thinking about it and I was very worried. So there are situations I will try to go back and tell them, I don't really have that thing. So I try to correct it. I try to correct whatever that, because if somebody asks me, let's say, they ask me, do you have, this is a Bible. Let's say they ask, do you have a red Bible? I said, no. Well, that is a lie. Because I do have a red Bible. Right? This is a red Bible. This belongs to me. So if somebody asks me, do you have a red Bible? And I said, no. That means that Tobiah just lied. But if I then come back to them, depending on what the circumstances is, you can come back to them and be like, actually, here's a red Bible. I do have a red Bible. It belongs to me. You see, that just changed the lie. Because the point is, they asked you, do you have a red Bible? You said no. The answer is yes. But you said no. And then you leave. And then you never talk to them again about it. That case is closed. No more talk about red Bible. You lied. Because you do have a red Bible. So there are options you have. You can come back and say, actually, I do have a red Bible. You know, when you asked me that question, I told you I don't have a red Bible, but I just wanted to just let you know I have a red Bible. And when I do that to people, they're like, okay, what's the point? Like, why? It doesn't make sense to them. They think I'm crazy. Why would they come back to me and tell me, and tell me that, oh, I just want to let you know that actually I do have this or I do this, I know. So people don't understand it. But the reason why I do that is just to correct the record. Because if I tell you that, if I'm just using this as an example, if you ask me if I have a red Bible, I said no, but I have this Bible, that's a lie. So I just lied. But if I then come back to, because at that point what you think is that Tobiah said that he doesn't have a red Bible. That's what's in your mind. That's the question you asked me. Do you have a red Bible? I said no. So for whatever reason why you need that information, what you will assume is that Tobiah has no red Bible. But if I come back to you 5 minutes later or 10 minutes later and say, actually, you asked me that question if I had a red Bible. Actually, I do have a red Bible. Then for whatever reason why you asked me that, now you know that I have a red Bible because I do have a red Bible. So I find out that if I do that to people, sometimes they, and this is, I'm talking about questions that catches you off guard. Questions that that will just come out of nowhere. Somebody will just quickly just ask you a question, just like that. You're not prepared. You didn't know that they were going to ask you that. The first thing that comes out of your mouth is either yes or no. But that yes or no is actually not the truth. These are the kind of things that I'm talking about. That's the situation you will find yourself, that you have to call them back and be like, actually, I just wanted to let you know that, this is, so that's usually in cases like that. I'm going to give you one example of something that actually happened. And then it happened again. It happened years ago. And then it happened recently. So, if you drive in the state where I live, if you drive a car, you are required to have insurance, and you're required to have your car registered and insurance. So I was driving and the police stopped me, and I didn't have insurance. This was the first incident, and it's a long time ago, years ago. I didn't have insurance for whatever reason, or either the insurance or the registration, either one of those. So they will give you this thing that they will give you what they call citation, that you have to go to the court. And if you don't have the insurance, they will fine you a lot of money. So I went to the court. Typically, you have to go to the court to tell them whether you have or not, because they will fine you. They will fine you a lot of money that you have to pay for not having the insurance. But if you have the insurance and you show it to the judge, to the so-called judge, then the so-called judge will cancel the money for you. You won't pay it. So I went to the court. I didn't see this thing coming. That question caught me off guard. So as it was my turn, they have the so-called judge was sitting in their bench, and then they have this woman who is like the officer in the court. So the judge called me, and the judge was like, did you have insurance during the time that the police stopped you? And the woman who was standing next to me, the police woman, I had an envelope in my hand. She quickly took that envelope from me and turned to the judge and said, yes, he has insurance. He has insurance. And I was like, the question was directed to me. The policewoman said to the judge that I had an insurance. And the judge was like, okay, case dismissed. And then they called someone else. So that happened a while ago. And then something similar happened recently again, which I think I told you guys a little bit some time ago. This happened recently. When I came into that court, the so-called judge called my name, and she told me that she's going to save me a lot of money. That's what she told me. When it was time again, the police, this time it was a man. When the judge said something about, do you have, it was the registration this time, I remember, because this happened recently. So the judge was like, do you have that registration? Or have you corrected the registration? The policeman said yes. Now, why is he saying yes on my behalf? The question was directed to me. This is a different court. Years later, totally different court. And totally different individual. This time it was a man. This man turned to the judge and said, yes. So in that case, what do you do? They said I have to pay a lot of money, over $800. So when I came into that courthouse, the judge looked at me and called my name and said, I'm going to save you a lot of money today. So obviously this is their plan or whatever. But you know what? I shouldn't even have said that, because that's taking the glory away from Yah. I give Yah all the glory, because this was a situation where I will say the truth and pay almost $1,000, or lie and pay $50. That was the situation that I was put in. But you see that this man that I don't know, I saw for the first time when I come into that courtroom. When that judge asked me about that paper, the policeman who works at the court stepped in and said yes. Before I could even say, he quickly said yes. The judge was like, okay, case, whatever, and she called someone else. I took my papers, and she said to me, as I took my papers, as I was leaving, I was looking at her. I was like, she said, "You're surprised, right? You look like you're very surprised." I said, yeah. She said, and so I think some people started laughing or something, because I was like, I didn't really say anything. So I left, and she said, okay, you're only going to pay $50. Can you pay it today? I said yes. And I left. So again, but this is normal circumstances where typically I'm going to have to be the one that, I will have to be, when she asked, do you have that insurance or do you have the registration? I should have lied. But you see a situation where somebody jumped in. Now, that's their problem, because by him saying that, he doesn't really know if I have it or not. That policeman doesn't know if I had that paperwork or not. As soon as the judge asked me that, I was like, because I had an envelope, I had something. I had it was an white envelope where I had my paperwork in. And he just saw that envelope, and he just saw it, and me touching the envelope, I didn't answer the question. And he quickly said that I have it. So this is just an example. It's just an example. And then I had a situation. This happens a lot. This one happens a lot. It happens so many times, where most of the time people will ask me, oh, do you have kids? Do you have children? Or are you married? I get this thing almost every 2 weeks or every month. People will ask me this, are you married? And I would say something like, typically if I say no, then they want to know why. Maybe I was married before and I was divorced. If I say yes, so it's a question that I typically don't like to deal with. But people ask me this question all the time. So so they ask this, and they will ask, I will say something like, when they say, do you have kids? Because somebody at my age, I'm supposed to have kids already. I'm supposed to have children already. So they will say, do you have kids? I will say, I wish. So I say stuff like that. That's not really yes or no. So I try to give a different answer. These are, of course, there are many questions I get on a daily basis where I will answer either yes or no. But there are certain things that you don't really want to answer people. There are certain questions, for whatever reason that you know best, you would rather not give the answer to that question. And most of the time, you are in a situation where you will have to lie in order to not give out that information. And that's what this is all about, to see, to learn ways to avoid that situation so that you don't have to lie. I had a relative the other day. This is probably maybe 3 weeks ago or a month ago. I was talking to a relative on the phone, and then she and I would talk often. So she doesn't ask me a question like that, but I don't talk to her children a lot. We don't talk often. So, but whenever we talk, most of the time they will mention about marriage. because they don't know if I'm married or not. They don't know because we're so far away from each other. We're very far away. Where I live is different from where they live. So after we finished talking about the reason why, or after he explained to me, or either before or after we talked about why he was talking to me on the phone, while his mother gave him the phone to talk to me, he asked me, "Are you married yet? He said something like, "Are you married yet?" And the answer to that question is, yes, I'm married. Or, no, I am not married. So, but I don't really want to answer him that, because, it's kind of embarrassing, the answer to that question. Or, so I said something like, what came to my mouth immediately was, well, when I come back, you will see. And he was like, oh, okay. So he asked, are you married yet? Have you found someone yet? I said, well, I kind of laughed and I was like, well, when I come back, you guys will see. When I come back, you will see. That's not the answer to the question. The question is, have you found someone yet? Are you married yet? Or something like that. So, you have to give answers like that. You have to think. You have to be able to think ahead of the game. You have to be able to keep these things in mind. That's why we're supposed to have a sound mind and be able to be alert and be able to be, we can't just be dull and just be like everyone else. No, we have to be able to be smart. That's the kind of people that Yah wants. Yah wants intelligent people. So when this person asks me, have you found someone? Have you found a wife yet? Are you married yet? When they say something like that and I really don't want to give them an answer, I said something like, well, when I get back, you guys will see, or you will see. You will find out if I'm married or not. So this is something that people may consider to be indirect answer or not straightforward answer. You are going to have to be giving, you are better off that somebody is not happy with you because you didn't really answer their question than to answer their question with a lie. Because you know what, if they ask you a question, let's say that person that asked me, are you married yet? And I lie to him just so he doesn't think that something is wrong with me. If I lie to him, he's going to think, oh, okay. He will be satisfied with the question, with the answer. But that's a lie. So, but the thing is that I don't really care about what he thinks. What I care is what Yah thinks. So as I'm dealing with this person on the phone, as I'm dealing with people, I'm not thinking about them. I'm thinking of Yah. Because Yah, my Heavenly Father, knows everything. He knows what I'm doing. He knows what's in my heart. He knows when I lie. He knows when I tell the truth. So I would rather offend you than to offend Yah. So if I'm in a situation where not answering your question directly will make you angry, okay, fine. Become angry. Eventually, you're going to forget about the whole situation. But if I lie to you just to get out of the situation, if I lie to you, well, you're going to become happy that I answered your question directly, even though I lied to you. You don't know that. You don't know that I lied to you. But then our Heavenly Father will become angry at me. I will be practicing lies. So I would rather tell you that, I don't really want to talk about that situation right now. Or I would say something like, this is a long story. It's a long story, or because there's a reason behind that. Like this person that asked me if I'm married or if I have found a wife. There's a long story behind it. There's a long story behind the reason why I'm still living by myself right now. It's a long story. And it has to do with the Bible. Will he want to hear that? I don't think so. Even if I tell him that long story, you know what? At the end of that story, he will think I'm crazy. He's going to think, Tobeya, are you sure? You know, which Bible are you reading? Are you not reading? Is this not the same Bible that we're reading, that you're reading? Is that, I mean, so that's what he's going to think. So I don't want to go into that. He's going to think I'm crazy. So I don't want to tell him the long story of the reason why I'm not married yet, or I don't have a wife, I'm not living with a wife because of this, because of the Bible, because of this, because of this, because of... It's a long story. So I will say something like, you know, that's a long story. They're asking me a question that I have yes or no answer, and I say it's a long story. Because there's a long story behind that. So sometimes you may have to tell somebody, you know, that's a long story. Or, you know, I don't really want to get into that question now. Or there are things you can say depending on the question, depending on who is asking the question, depending on what they're asking. You have to always remember, it's better that you offend them than to offend ya. And you have to always keep this in mind as you're dealing with people, that questions will always come up. And most of the time it will come at a time that it will catch you off guard. Just catch you off guard. Sometimes people will ask you, this is one of the questions I get a lot. Once you begin talking about the law or something like that, people will say, do you go to church? Do you go to church? Do you go to church? And they don't really have a good intention while they ask you that question. So because, of course, they are asking you that question because of their misunderstanding of the Bible that says in Hebrews not to avoid the assemblies of the brethren. Well, that's not talking about church. That is not talking about the church. If we gather together now, like we are gathered together right now, this is assembly. We are gathering. This is what the Bible is talking about. Not to avoid things like this. Not to avoid gatherings like this when we gather together. So it's not specifically talking only about church. But today, Christians have understood that to mean not to avoid going to church. So when they ask you that question, you will notice that typically when you begin to talk about the Sabbath, and you begin to say things, and you may have said one or two things against Christianity, they'll be like, do you go to church? So what I would say in that situation, sometimes I'll say like, well, I do fellowship with people. Well, their question is, do you go to church? I say, I do fellowship with people, which I do fellowship with people. They'll be like, but do you go to church? I'll be like, I fellowship with people. So, or I fellowship on the Sabbath, or I keep the Sabbath. This is usually the answer that I give. So, but most of the time, I don't give people direct answer. I will say something that is like, typical example is just this one that happened recently, where he asked me, he said something like, have you found a wife? See, he asked something like that, and I was like, well, you will find out when I come back. You guys, you will find out. I say something like that. Well, that's not, and he was like, oh, okay. That was not really the answer that he's looking for. So you have to think that way. You have to think like that. Sometimes people will get offended because they will feel like you're not answering their question. It's okay. Let them get offended instead of you lying to them. People will tell you a lot. Oh, they'll want the truth. People will pretend as if they want the truth. Most people in this world right now will pretend as if they want the truth. Most people don't want the truth. Most people hate the truth. People will tell you, oh, I hate lies. I hate lies. I don't want lies. I hate lies. I hate people that lie. Not true. Most people love lies. Most people hate the truth because that person that is telling you that they hate lies, they don't like people that lie. That person will turn around and they will lie to you about little things. They will lie to you, so people lie a lot. People lie a lot. We lie a lot, and then we still turn around and say that we hate lies. People will tell you how they love the truth, how they love the truth, they love the truth, they love the truth. They say that all the time. People don't love the truth. Most people in this world don't want the truth because the truth comes with responsibility. The truth means that you will either stop doing something or start doing something. Most people don't want the truth, but they pretend as if they want the truth. So, but you're better off making someone angry by not answering their question than to answer their question and lie. So there are so many little incidences. This happens to me a lot. If you know me very well, especially those that don't keep the law, that know me, there are little things where sometimes I don't answer people's question. If I don't want to answer it, okay, you can become angry, but I'm not going to lie to you so that you don't get angry. And then my Heavenly Father will become angry at me. That is not going to happen. So there are many incidences, so many little incidences where people will ask me something and I will answer their question with question. They will ask me a question, then I myself will ask them a question. They will ask me a question and I will, just say something else because I don't want to lie. But majority of the time, I do, this is just sometimes. Majority of the time, the answer is yes or the answer is no. This is just those little times that you don't want to give out certain information. Those are moments that you would have to either tell them, I don't really want to talk about this now. Or if it has a long story behind it, you can tell them it's a long story. Or, there are, depending on who is asking the question, depending on what is being asked, depending on the circumstances, will depend on the answer that you're going to give. If it's something that you don't really care just tell them the truth. But if it's because most of the time when we lie because we don't want to give out the actual information. So those circumstances that you don't want to give out the actual information, remember that if you do lie, Yah will not be happy with you. So in that case, if it has a long story behind it, tell them that this is a long story. This is a long story. Or, depending on what the circumstances is, you can turn around and ask them a question again. Okay, let's say, for example, somebody is asking, did you do something like this? Let's say, okay, I'm holding this red Bible, and I'm going to put it down. And then somebody asks me, were you holding the red Bible 5 seconds ago? That's a question. 5 seconds ago, I was holding the red Bible. So in that case, I would say something like, did you think I was holding the red Bible? They asked me, were you holding the red Bible 5 seconds ago? My question to you, asking me that question, did you think I was holding the red Bible? So I'm not telling you, yes, I was holding it. I'm not saying, no, I wasn't holding it. I'm asking you a question. Or I would say something like, did you think I could be holding the red Bible? And typically, that person will ask another question or say something else, and typically they will move on to a different subject. But if they insist on that question, then I can choose to insist on my question to you. Did you think I could be holding the red Bible? because I don't want to answer you that I'm holding the red Bible. Or I could just say, yes, I was holding the red Bible. But it depends on what the circumstances is. It depends. I can easily just say, yes, I was holding the red Bible. If I don't want to answer that, I would be like, did you think I could be holding the red Bible? Or do I look like somebody who will be holding the red Bible? That's a question. So, however you want to understand my question, you ask me if I'm holding the red Bible, which I was. If you ask me that question, and I'm saying to you, do I look like someone who could be holding the red Bible, or who was holding the red Bible? However you understand that question, my answer to you, that's up to you, because I'm asking you a question. That's a question. You ask me if I'm holding a red Bible. I'm asking you, do I look like somebody who will be holding it? Now, it's not in all circumstances that you'll be able to give an answer like this. It depends on who you're dealing with. It depends on what the circumstances is. It depends on what the situation is. But instead of saying no, which will be a lie, you can turn around and ask them a question. Or you can just say, yes, I was holding the red Bible. Oftentimes, it's easy to just tell the truth and just say yes and move on. And the thing with lie often leads to another lie. That's why it's so dangerous to lie. You see, if I was holding this red Bible about 1 minute ago or something like that, if you ask me if I was holding the red Bible, if I say no, when I'm saying no, most of the time you'll be like, okay, and we move on. That's what I'm thinking. That lying to you will put an end to that question. No. Oftentimes, because Satan is behind all this, oftentimes that lie that I just told you will lead to another lie. Because there might be somebody around who saw me holding that red Bible. Or there's a camera around that saw me holding the red Bible. Or there is something. I mean, most of the time, one lie will often lead to another lie. And then lead to another lie. And at the end, the result is never good. The end, it will result in that thing that you're trying to avoid. The reason why people lie is to cover up something. Oftentimes when you do lie to cover up one thing, often it leads to more lies. And at the end of the day, you get exposed as a liar. That's one of the reasons why it's so dangerous to lie. Oftentimes you do not accomplish what you prepared on accomplishing. Like the person that asked me if I have found a wife, and I said to him, you will find out when I come back. I wasn't saying yes, I wasn't saying no. So when I do go back here as well, they will see if I found a wife or not. But if I said yes, and I haven't found a wife, then that means I was lying. So I will still get exposed. So you have to use wisdom. So oftentimes a lie will lead to a lie. But a good example is example I gave with the red Bible. If somebody asks me, were you holding the red Bible? And I said, no, that means I lied. They will be satisfied, but Yah will be angry at me. If I say yes, if it's a bad thing to hold the red Bible, if holding the Bible is a bad thing, then I said yes, I was holding the red Bible. That means that person will consider me to be, holding the red Bible, which is a bad thing. So that's the reason why I want to lie to him. That's the reason why we lie. We lie because we're trying to cover up something. We're trying to cover up a situation. But oftentimes, it will lead to something else. And at the end of the day, the whole thing will be so messy. The whole situation will be so bad that you lied to cover yourself, but now you get exposed. The whole thing will become bad and everyone will hear about it and it's not good. Oftentimes one lie will lead to another lie, and then another lie, and then another lie. That's one of the reasons why you have to avoid lying. You have to. But if that person asked me, were you holding the red Bible? And I said to them, do you think I was holding the red Bible? Or I say, do I look like somebody who could be holding the red Bible? That's a question right there. Mostly, they will not be satisfied with that question because I'm asking them a question on top of their own question. They will most likely not be satisfied. But at the same time, I did not lie. I did not tell them what they want to hear. Neither did I lie. I did not lie, but I wasn't telling them what they want to hear. In that case, Yah will be happy with me. I'm not lying. So that case may be unclosed. That case may be open because I didn't answer their question. They may keep asking over and over and over, were you holding the Bible? The answer is yes or no. Yes or no. Were you holding the Bible? I can choose to insist on my own question to them. Do I look like somebody who was holding the Bible? Were you holding the Bible? Do I look like somebody who was holding the Bible? Or I can say something like, you know what? I don't really want to talk about this now. Why am I doing all this? For whatever reason, I don't want to say that I was holding the Bible. So to just say no, which will be a lie. I'm not afraid of lying to them because of them. Because as soon as I say no, they will be satisfied. They will move on to whatever next. But Yah will not be happy with me. So my concern is not really because of the person who was asking me a question. I'm not afraid of whoever asking me the question. I'm afraid of Yah. Because that question is like a temptation to me. So I'm turning it around and I'm asking you. You're asking me if I was holding the Bible 5 minutes ago. Do I look like somebody who was holding the Bible? So this is just one of the ways you can handle this. You can either say that you don't want to talk about it, which you have every right to say. You don't want to talk about it, or you're not in the mood to talk about it, or if it has a long story behind it, you say this is a long story. I don't really, it's kind of a long story. There are different ways to handle this and not lie. It's very important we cannot lie. We can't. But this is one of the things that Satan is going to be tempting you with. These are the little things that Satan is going to be using to tempt you, to come after you. Little things like this. He's going to be tempting you. He's going to be using these things to come after you, but most of the time, it's just easy to say yes. Because think about it with the Red Bible. If it's a bad thing, just think about, this is very important. Think about this. If it's a bad thing to hold the Red Bible, if holding the Red Bible is a bad thing, which of course, I'm just using this as an example. I'm just using the Red Bible as an example. So let's assume that it's a bad thing to hold the Red Bible, right? And then I was holding it, and then I put it down. And then somebody asked me, were you holding the Red Bible? I will tell you something right now. Sometimes, it's better to just say, yes, I was holding the Red Bible. It's better to tell the truth. Most of the time, that case will be closed. It's better, yes, that person will look at you, wow, he was holding the Red Bible. He was holding the Red Bible. That is not a good thing. Most of the time, yes, it will not look good. It will not be a good thing for people to hear that I was holding the Red Bible. It sounds bad, which is the reason why the first thing that comes to your mind is to lie. To lie, that's the first thing that comes to my mind, to lie so I can cover up the truth, which is the fact that I was holding the Red Bible. So the very first thing that comes to my mind is to lie. So, it's easier, but your mind will not tell you this. You will not think about this when you are in that situation. when you are in that situation where you're faced with that question immediately, you will not think of this, that it's actually easier to just tell the truth. Because if I say yes, I was holding the red Bible, often, whoever was asking you that question will just think, oh, that's so bad. But that case will be closed there. Typically, it will not extend. But once you lie, so not only was me holding the Bible a bad thing, but now I have lied that I wasn't holding the red Bible. So now it becomes two. So I was trying to cover up the fact that I was holding the red Bible, which was not good. Now I've lied about it. So now it's a two situation. So not only did he hold the red Bible, but he lied about it. So now you see, it looks even much worse. And Satan is tricky. He will create situations for you that oftentimes that lie will get exposed to embarrass you, to shame you. You're claiming to keep the law, right? And then now you get caught lying. So oftentimes it's easier to just say the truth. Yes, I did this. Yes, I did, I've done this, or I did this. Trying to think of instances. There was someone who, they asked me a question, and that question was, it was something that the person knew I was keeping the Torah, but they themselves, they were not keeping the Torah. They know about the Sabbath, they know about the laws and the commandment, but they are still kind of going to school, and their school will not allow them. They're going to school, kind of semi-going to school and working or something like that. And they knew about the laws and the commandment. And this person is a Christian. So they will try to, sometimes they will try to be like, they will try to I don't talk to that person anymore, but sometimes they will try to use things against me. So they'll be like, you know that thing that happens when you deal with Christians, they'll ask you, do you keep all the laws? Do you keep all the laws? Sometimes this person will do stuff like that. But they will try to do it specifically. So they will try to ask me specific questions. So what they are trying to do is this, because I keep telling them that they have to keep the law. That's what I tell this person. So what this person was doing is that she will try to pick certain things and try to pin me with those particular things to see if I will say that I'm not doing it. And then she will be like, well, oh, you're not even doing that one, and you're telling me to do the, stuff like that. It's kind of like things like that. That's what this person tries to do. They will try to pin, find little things and basically to discredit me, what they call discrediting. So because I'm telling her that she has to keep the law, and she knows that she has to keep the law, so she now tried to pinpoint things to discredit me so that I will stop telling her that she has to keep the law. So she asked me a question. Some people will probably lie about that question. She asked me a question, and I said to her, I told her, I answered her, and she was like, what? She was like, I think she was a little bit shocked. But that is a situation where I would have just lied to her and tell her, no, I don't, I've never done anything like that. And then by me lying to her, I will I must have offended Yah. That will be me sinning against Yah. But I will tell her what she wants to hear. So in that way, I don't feel discredited. So there will be circumstances like that. But I gave her the answer. And she was a little bit... I gave her the answer, and she was a little bit I think she was a little bit shocked. But that ended there. That situation, that ended there. That's what I was telling you about telling the truth. Oftentimes, the answer seems like the answer will make you look bad. But it's better to just say the truth. They would think that, oh, that's so bad. But most of the time, it ends there. But if you lie about it, oftentimes it extends. Oftentimes, you will even forget that you answered them with a lie. And then maybe that question will come again, and then you will tell the truth. But then they'll be like, well, you told me this the other day. Now you're telling me this. So it's just lying. Not only will Yah not be happy with you, but lying is so messy. Oftentimes you lie to cover up something. Eventually, at the end of the day, you get embarrassed. You get, exposed and embarrassed. So it's easier to just tell the truth. Like as I said, typically when you find yourself in that situation where you are asked this question immediately, right away, and you have to answer right away, oftentimes you will forget what I'm telling you right now, that it's easier to tell the truth. You're only thinking of the negativity. Oh, this is going to look so bad. This will look so bad. They will think I'm this. They will think I'm that. This will look... So what's coming to your mind is to lie. But if you will slow down and just say yes, yeah, I was holding the red Bible, they will be like, wow, you're holding the red Bible? You're telling us that we shouldn't hold the red Bible, and you're holding the red Bible? Don't you know that it's bad to... they will say stuff like that. But oftentimes, trust me, oftentimes that will die down. That case will close there. But if I lie and say, no, I wasn't holding the red Bible, most of the time it's either that there was somebody who saw me when I was holding the red Bible. They will come out and say, actually, I saw you holding the red Bible. And most of the time, it will just explode. The whole thing will just, at the end of the day, that thing you're trying to protect, you will not be successful. And you will look even much, much bad. Because not only was I holding the red Bible, but I also lied about it. And then that brings up the issue of credibility. How then can you turn around and talk about the Torah again when you lied? So holding the red Bible will not even be the problem again. The problem is that you lied, because the Torah said that you shouldn't lie. And Yah hates that, especially when you are a child of Yah. When you're dealing with the word of Yah, when you're keeping the law, you become Yah's representative. When you're wearing your tassel, you're dressing moderately if you're a woman, you're covering your hair, you're doing all these things, you become a representative of Yah, whether you are a man or a woman. Among those who doesn't know Yah, you represent Yah. Because you're doing the things you're doing because of Yah. So if you then go start messing with lies and things like that, you're profaning the name of Yah. Yah does not like that. He doesn't like that. People, you don't do that. Yah will not take it lightly. You will be punished very severely because you're profaning his name. Because people will look at you and be like, look, he claims to be keeping the law and he's lying, or she's lying, or she's doing this, or he's doing this. You don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. So oftentimes it's easier to just tell the truth and move on. Or you can just say, I don't want to talk about this. I would rather not discuss this now. I don't want to talk about this. If it has a long story behind it, you say it's a long story. Or you can say something like, as I said, depending on what the situation is. I can ask that person, do I look like somebody who could be holding the red Bible? Do you think I could be holding the red Bible? I'm not answering their question, which is very clear, and they will most likely not be happy. They will not be happy that I'm not answering their question, because I'm answering their question with a question. But at the same time, I'm not lying. I'm not saying that I'm holding the red. I was holding the red Bible, or I wasn't holding the red Bible. I'm not admitting it, and I'm not, rejecting it either. You have to think ahead of time in letting them, on what to say. One of the examples that I think I did not give is sometimes you're doing something, or somebody wants you to come and do something, but you're going to be, you don't really want to go and do what they want you to do. Then you say something like, well, I'm going to be busy doing this. Maybe you plan on something that you want to do in your house. Maybe you plan on somewhere else that you want to go, or you plan on something else that you need to do. You can tell them, sorry, I'm not going to be able to come. I already have this plan, or I'm going to be doing this, or we're going to be going here, or this is, as long as you're actually going to be doing that. That may not be the reason why you don't want to go. Let's say somebody wants you to come and do something for them on the Sabbath day, and you don't want to go and do that. And if you tell them that you don't really, that you're keeping the Sabbath, because of that you're not going to come, if you tell them that, they may not understand it, they may misunderstand it. Most of the time that is the case. Most of the time you will give somebody the actual truth. You will tell somebody, sorry, I'm not going to be able to come because I'm keeping the Sabbath, and it's on a Wednesday or a Thursday or on Friday. They may not understand it. It may just make the case complicated. Well, if you have something else that you're doing on that day, instead of just telling them that you're not coming because you're keeping the Sabbath, you can tell them, oh, I'm going to be doing this, I'm going to be doing that. You don't necessarily need to tell them that you're not coming because you're keeping the Sabbath. Does that mean that you lied? No. They are saying don't come. The reason why you don't want to go is because you're keeping the Sabbath. So you can tell them, or let's say, not because on the Sabbath you don't do anything on the Sabbath. So you can't really, that's not a good example. It's not a good example because you don't do anything on the Sabbath. But let's say, somebody wants you to come and do something on a day, but you don't want to go. I've seen a situation where people will invite me for something and I don't want to go. If I don't really want to go for whatever reason, I can have another plan. I can have another plan and tell them, because of this, I'm not coming because I'm going to be doing this. So, and on that day, you go ahead and do what you need to do. So, again, it depends on what the situation is. You have to look at the situation and use wisdom. Okay, you have to look at the situation and you tell them, I'm sorry, or you have to look at the situation. Even, I'm glad I just said it now. I'm sorry. Even simply saying I'm sorry, I'm very careful. You know how people will just say, oh, I'm so sorry. No, I don't really try to say that because I may not be sorry. People easily just simply say that. There are certain situations where people will be like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I did this. Or I'm sorry I kept you waiting. I'm sorry. No, I try to be careful because I don't want to lie. I'm mindful. I am mindful of these things because if I'm not really sorry and I tell you that I'm sorry, then I'm lying. But you see people do it all the time. You see people that will say to you, oh, I'm so sorry. No, don't say you're sorry if you're not really sorry. You can say something like, my apologies. Or there are different things. Don't say to someone that you are sorry, unless if you're truly sorry. You have to think of the situation. If you kept somebody waiting on the phone, if you kept somebody waiting and you come back and you say you're sorry. If you're sorry, tell them you're sorry. But if you're not sorry about something, we can't be like the Gentiles and simply say, oh, I'm so sorry. No, if you're not sorry and you say you're sorry, you're lying. So, but again, you have to think of these things ahead of time. If somebody wants you to do something and you don't want to do it, you either tell them that you don't want to do it, or if you don't want to tell them, think of something else to tell them that you're not going to be lying, or you tell them that you're not going to be able to make it, or you tell them that you already have other plans for that day. You can say you have other plans. You don't need to give them details. that Sabbath thing is a good example. If somebody wants you to come and do something for them on the Sabbath, and telling them that that day is a Sabbath day, that you don't want to, that you're not really going to be able to come, they may not understand it. They may think you're crazy, whatever, but you don't need to go into all that. Just tell them that you have other plans already. That, that you already have another plans. That if this is then for another day, that you don't mind, you can help them. You can come. You can do this, you can do that. But that you already have another plan for that day. You already have another plan, and it's so important. It's already been scheduled. It has already been scheduled, that you can't change it, that you cannot do it. You can't be able to come. You don't have to tell them the reason why. Now, do you have another plan for that day? Of course, that's a Sabbath day. It's a Sabbath day. You have another plan already, because you have the plan to keep the Sabbath. So something like that, something that's simple. Somebody asking you to come and do something for them on a certain day. Simply telling them that you already have a plan for that day. It's as simple as that. You don't have to go into the details. You don't have to tell them why. You don't have to tell them. You don't need to tell them, unless if you want to. If you want to, you can go ahead and tell them. But you don't have to. You can simply say, I already, if this is another day, I would love to help. If you would like to help them, if you would love to help them, if the only reason why you don't want to do it is because they put that in on a Sabbath day, then tell them, I don't mind helping you. I don't mind coming to help you. But unfortunately, I already have another thing scheduled for that day. If this is another day, I will help you. So you will find out that saying something like, I already have another plan, or I did those things are things that you're going to be using more often, But the key is to think ahead of time. Think ahead of time. Think of this situation and talk less. Listen more. Sometimes you may have to tell somebody, let me think about it. There are certain things that somebody will ask you or want you to give them an answer or whatever. You can tell them, can you give me some time? Just give me a minute. Give me some time. I will get back to you with that question, with the answer to that question. And then you can think about it. Maybe on your way home. Maybe you think about and think of the best answer to give. But again, you cannot do any of this if you are not paying attention. So there are some questions that they will ask you. You will keep quiet. And you'll be like, can I answer you this question later? Can we, can we talk about this some other time? Can we do this? And then that will give you room to think about it and think of the best way to answer. So in that way, you don't make a mistake. So these are all wisdom. These are all wisdom. These are the best way to handle it so that you don't lie. And oftentimes, when you think about it more, you'll be able to have a better answer, So we have to use wisdom. We have to be careful. This is going to be coming from Satan. Satan is the one who will be causing these little incidences to happen, to tempt you, to test you. If you lie, you are doomed. We're not supposed to lie. We're not supposed to be lying. We're not supposed to do that at all. We have to be very careful so that Satan will not tempt us and push us in a situation where you have to use wisdom. And you have to always think ahead. When you're dealing with people, when you meet somebody right now and you're dealing with them physically, you have to always think ahead. Think ahead. When people are talking to you, that's why the scripture says for you to talk less and listen more. Talk less, listen more. You have to be extremely careful. Watch what you say. If you talk too much, you're not going to be able to control what you say. If you meet me in real life, I don't talk much. If you meet me in real life, people that know me very well will tell you. So I listen more, I observe more. The only reason why you hear me, if you're only looking at my YouTube channel and you only know me because of the Bible, you think I talk too much. Because the only way, I have to talk. That's how you hear this. That's how you're going. That's how I'm going to communicate with you. I can't communicate with you with sign language. I can't communicate with you by looking at you. I can't explain the Bible to you, but it's only by talking. So it's interesting. It's kind of amazing that somebody who is not like that will then be able to talk for so long. And that's the same thing you see with Paul the Apostle. You look in Acts of Apostle, you see Paul, he has to talk a lot. He has to talk about these things. He talks this way, the way I'm talking. So you see that in Acts of Apostle, he came into a place, he talked all the way till midnight. He was supposed to leave and people was in that room listening. They were in that room listening. They did not want Paul to go. They did not want Paul to go. He was listening. Some people was falling asleep, but they listened even until midnight. He kept speaking and kept speaking and kept speaking. It's true talk. Yeshua talked a lot. Yeshua will talk almost from morning till night. Once he gets down from the mountain and goes to the temple, you think that Yeshua was just sitting there and people would just sit there and look at him? They would just look at him and no. It's constant talking. That's the thing that Yah does. Yah will put a spirit into, when Yah chooses someone to do his work, that has to do with his word, he typically put a spirit on them and put that strength in them that they can talk straight for 24 hours. But when it comes to talking about something else, they'll lose energy. They will lose energy. But when it comes to talking about the things of Yah, they don't lose energy. They can go for 24 hours straight talking about the things of Yah. But when it comes to talking about worldly things, they quickly just lose energy. So oftentimes I prefer to listen than to talk, especially when it comes to the things that don't have to do with Yah. I'm not into that at all. And if there's anybody who can say something about you, it's your mother. If anybody knows you well, your mother knows you well. Your mother knows you more than anyone else knows you. So your mother can tell things about you that most people will not be able to tell. My mother will tell you that I don't talk much. I don't talk much. So the point I'm trying to make is that it's good not to talk too much. It's good to listen more than you talk when you're dealing with people. Because the less you talk, the less likely of you lying. If people have to push you to talk, if you're listening, you come into a place, you're listening, you're dealing with people, you're listening, if you don't talk much, then you will be able to have a much, much bigger control of the things that comes out of your mouth. So even when somebody asks you a question, you keep quiet for a little bit. You think about it for a little bit, and then you talk. But if you're somebody who talks a lot, then it's easy to just lie. Because you won't even know. You just open your mouth and that's the thing that I told you guys in the court. Twice in the Gentile court system, it has happened where they asked me a question. I didn't answer the question right away. They want to know yes or no. And then somebody who was the police officer will say, yeah, he has it. But if I'm somebody who talks more, I would have said, oh yeah, it's easy to, and sometimes it will cost you. Because if you do say the truth, it will cost you. If you lie, it will cost you. So it's better to talk less. Talk less. Don't talk too much. Don't talk too much. Listen more than you talk. Do not talk just anyhow. Because if you are the kind of person that talks too much, well, if somebody asks you a question in that situation, that situation, you have to answer immediately. If you are in the habit of talking and you're talking and you're talking and you're talking, and they ask you a question and then you keep quiet, then that becomes suspicious. So whatever you say after you became quiet, they will think that you're lying because you're used to talking too much. But it will be very difficult to do this, but if you can get yourself to be in situations where you will be talking less. You have to put this into your lifestyle now. You have to learn to talk less. The scripture tells us to talk less and listen more. If you learn to do that, that will decrease your chances of lying. Because if people know you as someone who doesn't talk too much, so even when they ask you a question, they will not expect you to answer it immediately. They will not expect you to answer it immediately. They will expect you to take your time before you talk because you're used to doing that. But if you're somebody who runs their mouth too much, a lot, then of course, you are most likely to lie often because you do speak too much, you talk too much, so you're most likely to lie. So these are things that we have to incorporate into our lives as we go. But this is very important. The bottom line is that we cannot lie. We can no longer lie. We can no longer. That's something that we used to do in the past. We can no longer do that. If you do happen to tell somebody something that is a lie, you just happen to did that, call them and tell them the truth. Call them and tell them the truth. Oftentimes, if you tell somebody something that is not the truth, and then you call them back and tell them, I just want to let you know this is the truth. Oftentimes, it will actually, it's, because you came back and told them the truth, it will not be a big deal. They will not say, oh, you lied to me. Why did you lie to me? They won't say that because you're the one that came back to tell them the truth. I have a situation where a while ago, there was somebody that, someone that my mother found for me to marry. We were communicating through phone and then they sent me an email. And in the email, they told me that they had an abortion. They've had an abortion in the past. That they had an abortion and that they just wanted to let me know that that when they were in school, after they finished from school or something like that, they were waiting for some exam or for a job or whatever, something like that. That they had this male friend, a friend who was a young man. So they began to that she didn't really have anyone to talk to. So she started talking to this young man, and then and before they met together, and then eventually the point was that she got pregnant. But because she just finished school and has to get a job, that she didn't want to carry the baby, and that she there was a girlfriend of hers that took her to some place and she had an abortion. So she wrote this thing on a letter for me and sent me the letter, and I read the letter. Then after reading the letter, see, this is something that she didn't have to tell me this. She did not have to tell me this. If she didn't tell me this, I'll probably not know. I may marry her and she may start having problem and not have a baby, and we may not know that it was because of abortion. But she didn't have to tell me this, but she told me. So the reason why she told me this is so that I don't find out in the future and it will become a problem. Well, in this case, after she told me this, I ended the relationship with her because so in that case, it's better, it's better to tell the truth So that if somebody wants to deal with you, they will deal with you. If they don't want to deal with you, they will move on. Because if she didn't tell me and I later find out in the future, then that may be even much worse, because at that point it may be too late. It may be the damage will be too much. So it's better to tell the truth. At the end of the day, it's better to tell the truth. But like as I said, oftentimes people don't really want to hear the truth. People don't want to hear the truth because the truth comes with a price. The truth is difficult. The truth comes with a consequence. It's not easy, and the truth oftentimes means that you have to change something. You have to change the way you're living. You have to start doing something, or you have to stop doing something, or you have to start doing something. People don't want to hear the truth, but they will tell you, and I really don't like it. It drives me crazy. I don't like it when people talk about the truth. Most people don't want to hear the truth. They don't want to hear the truth, and a good example of that is that they know that Sunday is not the Sabbath day, and they still go to church on Sunday. They know that Christmas has nothing to do with the birth of Christ. They still observe Christmas, and then they still tell you that, I hate lies. I want the truth. No, you don't want the truth, because if you love the truth, you're not going to have anything to do with Christmas, because Christmas is based on a lie. It's based on a lie, and that lie is that it has to do with the birth of Christ. No, it has nothing to do with the birth of Christ. If you love the truth, you should not be going to church on Sunday or on Saturday, because it's not the Sabbath day. But these people know that it's not, but they still go to church on Saturday and on Sunday. So you don't love the truth. There's so many things like Christianity. Most people know that Christianity doesn't follow the Bible. Most people know that. They know that Christians don't follow the Bible. They ignore the Bible. They ignore even the New Testament. And yet, they claim that they love the truth. No, you don't. If you love the truth, you cannot have anything to do with Christianity. You cannot have anything to do with it. And if you love the truth, you should be keeping the laws in the Bible. Because the New Testament and the Old Testament, the Gospel and the Torah tells us that we have to keep the laws and the commandment. Yeshua said that we have to keep the law. Christ said that we have to keep the law. That is the truth. But most people will tell you that they want the truth, they hate lies, but it's actually the opposite. It's the opposite. The bottom line is that we have to tell the truth. Whatever we do, we have to be able to tell the truth. We cannot, because there's a consequence. There's a consequence to lying. There's a big consequence if we lie. If we lie, like you see in Revelation chapter 21 verse 8, those that lie will not be allowed into the kingdom of heaven. So what you do is talk less, listen more, pay attention whenever you're dealing with anybody. And if people ask you a question, that's why you have to be attentive. Talk less, listen more. So if someone asks you a question that you either have to lie or tell the truth, and you don't want to do both, you either tell them that you don't want. Most of the time, just tell them the truth. Like as I say, it's easier to just say the truth. It's easier. That truth may make you look bad. You may look bad, but it's just for a moment. It's easier to tell the truth and move on. When you lie, not only will Yah not be happy with you, but that lie will often lead to another lie, and then to another lie. At the end of the day, the reason why you don't want to lie will be defeated. You will be exposed. You will be exposed not only that you did that thing that you're trying to cover up, you will also be exposed that you lied about it. That's why it's so dangerous. The best thing is to just tell the truth. Like as I gave you example with that person. They asked me something. If it was me before, I would have said, oh no, I've never done anything like that. But I told them, yes, I have done it. They asked me, have you ever done something like this? I said, yes. They were a little bit shocked, but that was the end of it. I'm sure they have forgotten it also. I no longer talk to them. We no longer talk as we used to, but I'm sure they've forgotten it. But if I had told them, oh no, I've never done anything like that, I will be feeling guilty till this day, and I will most likely call them and be like, you remember that question you asked me? I just want to tell you that wasn't the answer. Actually, I have done that thing. I've done, so these are things that that you have to be mindful. Remember that Satan is going to be tempting you with these things. Oftentimes, just tell the truth. Just tell the truth. But if you don't want to, for whatever reason, then don't lie. You can ask them a question on top of the question they asked you. Or you can, if you're dealing with your mother, with your father, tell them the truth. Just tell them the truth. If you're dealing with your mom or your dad, tell them the truth. If you're dealing with your co-worker, your boss, or your whoever you're dealing with, and whatever you don't want, just don't lie. Remember, just keep in mind that you cannot lie. So however else you want to handle it, it's up to you. But do not lie. Do not lie. Leviticus 19:11 makes it clear that we cannot lie. And then you see, and plus in many other places, we cannot lie. You also see that liars will not be allowed into the kingdom. So that's why this is very important. This is extremely important. And this is something you're going to be, I face this, I will say, maybe on a weekly basis, or every other week, or on a monthly basis. I face situations like this. It used to be an issue in the past for me because I didn't know how to handle it. But now, most of the time, all glory to Yah, I kind of like, when I'm dealing with people, I try to be careful. And when a question comes, I will often, maybe I will answer it with a question. They will not be happy. They will feel like I'm being smart. Why are you asking me a question on top of the question? Well, you can feel that way, but at least I'm not offending the Most High. If you become angry at me, okay, but at least I'm not lying. Yes, I'm not answering your question. You're right. I'm not answering your question, but I don't want to lie either. See, this is about my salvation. This is about my salvation. So we cannot lie. We have to be very, very careful. We have to be watched, because this is going to be happening to you almost on a daily basis, almost on a weekly basis. You're going to be in situations like this, but you have to be smart about it. You have to always keep it in mind. See, if you're not thinking about it, and when it comes, you will fail. You have to always think about it. And one of the ways to handle this is talk less, listen more. Because if you are the type of person that listens more and talk less, when somebody opens their mouth and asks you a question, you're going to be able to hear it, and you're going to be able to think about it before you respond. But if you're the type of person that talks a lot, they talk too much, as before they will even finish asking you the question, you've already opened your mouth and you've already answered. You can't get away with the punishment that will come from Yah in a situation like that. I will not get away with the punishment. This is very serious. This is a salvational issue. It's extremely serious, and we have to be careful. We have to be careful. So these are ways to handle this. This is what Abraham did. See what Abraham did? So Abraham, you saw that in Genesis chapter 12 and in Genesis chapter 20. You saw how he was able to handle it so that he doesn't lie, because we can't do that. We cannot. So, but I will close with this. It depends on who is asking you the question. It depends on what the circumstance is. It depends. Some of the things I say here may not even apply, but it's up to you. If you're listening more and you're watching and you don't talk immediately, somebody talks, you will be able to have some few seconds to be able to know what to say. So your circumstances might be different, but whatever that circumstances is, keep in mind that we cannot lie. You cannot lie. If you are lying, forget about keeping the Sabbath. Forget about keeping on any other law. Go and do whatever you want to do. Because any other thing you're doing, you're wasting your time if you practice lies. So what does it mean to practice lie? Meaning that you lie all the time. People ask you something, you lie. Somebody asks you, you lie. No, we don't do that. It's better for you to offend someone. It's better for you to shut your mouth up It's better for someone to ask you a question and you don't say anything than for you to lie. Because if someone asks you a question and you don't say anything, you keep quiet, they will become angry at you. But it's better than for you to open your mouth and lie and offend the Most High. So if you don't know what to do, just shut your mouth. Keep quiet. They will say, can't you hear me? Don't you understand the question? Just keep quiet. Don't say anything. It's better to do that than to lie. At the end of the day, they will become angry. But think about it, they're not going to be angry forever. And if they choose to be angry forever, let them be angry forever. But the more clever and intelligent way to handle it is to either you have the right to say that, I don't really want to talk about this right now. Or if it has a long story behind it, you can say it's a long story. If they say, oh, why didn't you do this? Oh, why did you do this? Or why did you can, if it has a long story behind it, you just tell them it's a long story. Or I would rather not talk about this right now. Or do I look like somebody who could do something like that? Do I look like, and sometimes they will say, oh, no, you don't look like somebody who would do something like that, but I'm just saying, did you do that? And you're like, do I look like somebody who would do that? So it depends. But bottom line, no lying. This is very important. This is extremely important. Because this is, like as I said, this is one of the ways that Yah is going to, Satan is going to trick us to disobey Yah. So, but the bottom line, we don't lie, because according to Revelation chapter 21, verse 8, all liars will find their place in the lake of fire. They will not be allowed into the kingdom of heaven. And we want to make sure that we're not one of them. We want to make sure that we're not one of them. So all glory to our Heavenly Father for everything. I thank Him for everything. I thank Him for at least the fact that we are even able to think of these things. The fact that we are able to be mindful. See, we're being mindful so that when that temptation comes, we will not be able to be tempted to fall, or to fall. We will not be able. Satan will not get us, because this will happen. This will often happen. But there are different ways to handle it. If you don't know what to do, keep quiet. But remember, I will have to warn you. If somebody asks you a question and you keep quiet, it's better to keep quiet than to lie. But if you do keep quiet, then it's going to raise more questions. Then they're going to focus on that. Why aren't you answering? But if you do choose to keep quiet, it may not make the thing to go away. They may be thinking, why isn't he answering? Why isn't she answering? Maybe they may insist on that. So it's better to either say it's a long story, which in that case they cannot force you to tell a long story. If it has a long story behind it, like the example I gave you, I gave an example with a relative that was asking me, have I found a wife yet? They asked a question, something like, have I found a wife? Yes. Have I found a wife yet? And I said something like, well, you will find out when I come back, when I get back home, you will find out. That wasn't a yes, that wasn't a no. So, and he was like, okay, and that was the end of it. Is he going to ask me that again? Most likely not. Because the last time he asked me that question, I said, you will find out when I come back. So if I talk to him next month, well, is he going to ask me, have you found a wife? Then I will repeat the same thing I said before. Well, I thought I told you. I've told you, when I come back, you guys will find out if I found a wife or not. So I'm not saying yes, I'm not saying no. So you have to think of ways to handle situations like that and not lie. Because I could have become embarrassed and be like, yes, I found a wife or whatever, So all glory to the Most High, for giving us understanding, at least to understand that lying will get us into the kingdom of, into the lake of fire. All glory to Him for opening our eyes and making us to understand that. And you see that Abraham was thinking ahead. Even before he got into Egypt, he told Sarah. even before he got into Egypt. So there are certain situations you might have to look at your life. There are certain things in my life that I've looked at, and I try to, you have to think. This thing, I don't want to discuss this with anyone. I don't want to tell anyone something about this if they ask me. So I'm going to think. You have to think, what answer am I going to be giving? Like the answer I gave that person when they asked me, are you married yet? Or have you found a wife yet? And I said, you will find out when I come back. So I can give that answer to anybody from my relatives, that anybody that from that area that asks me that question. I can be giving them that answer. That answer is not yes. That answer is not no. So you see that Abraham was thinking, according to Genesis chapter 12, Abraham was thinking ahead. And Genesis chapter 20, he told Sarah ahead of time, if anybody asks you who we are, or tell them that I am your brother. So you have to look at your life. Those things that people will most likely ask you and you don't want to tell them the fact about that situation. You have to be able to plan ahead. What answer is the best answer so that I don't have to lie? This is very important, extremely important. We have to be mindful. We have to be like those 5 virgins in Matthew chapter 25. Matthew chapter 25 talks about the 10 virgins. 5 was very wise. They were paying attention. 5 was foolish. We're not supposed to be like the foolish 5. We're supposed to be like the wise 5. And think ahead of time and pay attention. So all glory to our Heavenly Father. I hope that this information will help, so that you can prepare and be able to avoid lying. And like as I said, it's better. It may not be easier, but it's better to just tell the truth. Oftentimes, the thing will go away. But if you lie, not only will Yah be angry at you, but oftentimes one lie will lead to another lie, and then to another lie. At the end of the day, you will end up doing more damage to yourself. That you're trying, whatever you're trying to protect will get exposed. So it's better to just tell the truth. But if you don't want to, then find other ways to answer that question, or you choose not to answer it. So I hope that this information, it will be helpful in terms of you handling this thing. This is more important for those who are keeping the Torah, because we want to make sure that as we're keeping the Torah, we're also not breaking little laws like this while we're doing the bigger one. If we're keeping the Sabbath and wearing tassel and doing this, and then we are lying, then what's the point? There's no point at that point,